Maya's feet were killing her. She'd been on them for 6 hours straight, and her shift at Romano's diner wasn't even halfway done. Friday nights were always the worst. The place was packed with families celebrating the end of the work week, couples on dates, and groups of teenagers laughing over milkshakes and fries. She grabbed a pot of coffee and made her rounds, refilling cups and forcing a smile even though every muscle in her body screamed for rest. This was her second job. In the mornings, she cleaned office buildings downtown. At night, she served food at the diner. Some weeks she pulled 70 hours between both jobs, but she had no choice. Her mother's medications weren't going to pay for themselves, and the bills kept piling up faster than she could knock them down. The door chimed, and Maya glanced up out of habit. What she saw made her pause. A man stood in the entrance, and he clearly didn't belong. His jacket was torn at the shoulder, held together with safety pins. His pants were stained and frayed at the bottom. His shoes looked like they'd walked 1,000 miles. But it was his face that caught her attention. Despite the dirt and the scraggly beard, there was something gentle in his eyes. Something sad but not broken. The hostess, Jenny, took one look at him and her smile vanished. She moved to intercept him, her hand already reaching toward the door like she was about to usher him right back out. The chatter in the restaurant had dropped. People were staring. A woman pulled her purser. A man whispered something to his wife. Before Jenny could say anything, Mr. Romano himself came rushing from the back. His face was red, and Maya knew that look. He was about to make a scene. "Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to leave," Mr. Romano said, not quite shouting, but loud enough that everyone could hear. "This is a family establishment." The homeless man didn't argue. He just nodded slowly, like he'd expected this. Like it happened all the time. He turned to go, and Maya felt something twist in her chest. She didn't think. She just moved. "Wait," Maya called out, crossing the floor in quick steps. Every eye in the restaurant turned to her. "Mr. Romano, can I talk to you for a second?" Her boss looked annoyed, but he followed her a few steps away. "Maya, what are you doing?" "We can't have him in here. He'll drive away customers." "Let me handle it," Maya said quietly. "I'll seat him in the back corner." "Nobody will even notice, please." Mr. Romano studied her face for a long moment. Maya had worked for him for 3 years and never caused trouble. She was reliable, always on time, never complained. Maybe that bought her some credit, because he finally sighed and waved his hand. "Fine, but he's your responsibility. Any problems, and he's out." "Understood?" Maya nodded and walked back to where the man still stood by the door. Up close, she could see how thin he was, how his hands trembled slightly. "Come on," she said gently. "I've got a table for you." She led him to the far corner, past the staring eyes and whispered comments. She could feel the judgment radiating from the other customers, but she ignored it. When they reached the booth, she grabbed a menu and set it down in front of him. "What's your name?" she asked. "Robert," he said. His voice was rough, like he didn't use it much. "Thank you for this. I know I don't look like I belong here." "Everyone deserves to eat," Maya said. She meant it. "Take your time with the menu. I'll be back in a few minutes." But even as she said it, she saw him looking at the prices. She saw the way his shoulders slumped a little more. She'd seen that look before. It was the look of someone doing math in their head and coming up short. Maya walked back to the counter and grabbed her notepad. She did some math of her own. She had $43 in her purse. That was supposed to last her until next Friday. She needed gas money, and her mother's blood pressure medication would need refilling in a few days. But when she looked back at Robert sitting alone in that corner booth while people deliberately looked away from him, she made her decision. She walked back to his table and pulled out her notepad. "How about the meatloaf special? It comes with mashed potatoes and green beans. And I think you need some apple pie, too. It's the best in town." Robert looked up at her, confusion in his eyes. I can't pay for all that. I was just hoping for maybe some coffee and toast." "Don't worry about it," Maya said, writing down the order. "It's taken care of." I don't accept charity, Robert said, and there was pride in his voice. The kind of pride that comes from once being someone different than who you are now. It's not charity, Maya told him. It's just one person helping another. Sometimes we all need a little help. She could see him fighting with himself. But he was so hungry and probably so tired. Finally he nodded, and his eyes got shiny with tears. He tried to blink away. Thank you, he whispered. You have no idea what this means. Maya smiled and headed to the kitchen to put in the order. She paid for it with her own money, watching her gas fund disappear. When she brought the food out, Robert ate slowly, like he was trying to make it last. Like he wasn't sure when his next meal would come. Other customers complained to Jenny. One couple asked to move tables. But Maya didn't care. She checked on Robert several times, refilled his water, and even snuck him an extra roll when Mr. Romano wasn't looking. When he was finished, Robert stood up carefully. He walked over to where Maya was wiping down a table and held out his hand. She shook it, surprised by how firm his grip was. You remind me of someone I knew once, he said. Someone very kind. God bless you for what you did tonight. Then he walked out into the rainy night and Maya watched him go. She had no idea that someone had been watching the whole thing. She had no idea that her life was about to change in ways she couldn't begin to imagine. She just went back to work. Her feet still hurting, her wallet lighter, but somehow feeling like she'd done something right. 3 days passed. And Maya had almost forgotten about the homeless man, almost, but every time she counted the money in her wallet, she was reminded. She'd had to skip buying groceries that week and was living on ramen noodles and whatever leftover bread the diner was going to throw away. Her mother had asked why there wasn't any fresh fruit in the house, and Maya had lied, saying she'd been too busy to shop. It was Monday afternoon, the slow time between lunch and dinner rush. Maya was refilling salt shakers when the door chimed. She looked up and saw a woman walk in. This wasn't unusual. What was unusual was the way the woman looked around the diner like she was searching for something specific. Or someone. The woman was probably in her early 60s, with silver hair pulled back in an elegant twist. She wore a navy blue blazer and pearl earrings. Everything about her screamed money, from her leather purse to her polished shoes. Maya had worked in restaurants long enough to spot the difference between people who had money and people who pretended to have money. This woman had the real thing. Jenny moved to seat her, but the woman held up her hand. Actually, I'd like to sit in that server's section, she said, pointing directly at Maya. Maya felt her stomach drop. Great. Probably someone who'd been here Friday night and wanted to complain about the homeless man. Maybe she'd demand Maya be fired. People like that existed. Maya had seen it before. She grabbed a menu and walked over, putting on her customer service smile. Right this way, ma'am. The woman followed her to a booth by the window. Maya set down the menu and pulled out her notepad. Can I start you off with something to drink? Coffee, please, Black. The woman settled into the booth and folded her hands on the table. She was looking at Maya in a way that made her uncomfortable. Not mean exactly. More like she was studying her. Taking notes in her head, Maya brought the coffee and took the woman's order. Just a slice of lemon pie. Then she went back to her side work, trying not to notice that the woman kept watching her. It was making her nervous. Over the next hour, Maya served her other tables. A group of construction workers who always ordered the same thing. An elderly couple who came in every Monday for the early bird special. A mom with 2 kids who couldn't sit still. Normal stuff. But every time Maya glanced toward the window booth, the woman was watching. When Maya brought the check, she half expected some kind of confrontation. Instead, the woman just smiled. Thank you. The pie was lovely. Maya nodded and walked away. When she came back to clear the table, she found 2 things. First, a $100 bill tucked under the coffee cup. Maya's hands started shaking. $100. That was more than she made in tips all week. Second, there was a business card with neat handwriting on the back. The card itself was simple. Patricia Holbrook. No job title. No company name. Just a phone number. But it was the handwritten message that made Maya's heart race. Please call me. It's about Robert. Maya looked up quickly, but the woman was already gone. The door was swinging shut behind her. Maya stood there holding the card, her mind spinning. Robert, the homeless man from Friday. How did this woman know about him? And why did she care? The rest of her shift dragged by. Maya kept touching the card in her apron pocket, making sure it was real. The $100 bill was real too. She'd checked it 3 times. When her shift finally ended at 9, she sat in her car in the parking lot and stared at the phone number. This had to be some kind of scam, right? People didn't just leave $100 tips and mysterious business cards. Except this woman had. Maya's fingers hovered over her phone. She should just throw the card away. Forget the whole thing. But curiosity was eating at her. And that $100 meant she could buy her mother's medication and still have money for gas. She dialed the number. It rang twice before someone picked up. Hello? It was the woman from the diner, Patricia. Hi. This is Maya from Romano's Diner. You left me your card? Maya! Thank you so much for calling. The woman's voice was warm, genuinely pleased. I know this must seem strange. I promise I'm not trying to scare you or trick you into anything. I just really need to talk to you about what happened Friday night. What about it? Maya asked carefully. The man you helped, Robert, he's my brother. Maya felt her breath catch. Your brother? Yes, and what you did for him. Maya, you have no idea how much that meant. Not just to him, but to our entire family. We've been looking for Robert for months. He's been living on the streets, and we've been desperate to find him and get him help. Maya's head was spinning. But I don't understand. How did you even know I helped him? There was a pause. This is going to sound odd, but someone who knows our family happened to be at the diner that night. They saw what you did. How you stood up to your manager. How you paid for Robert's meal with your own money. How you treated him like a human being when everyone else was treating him like trash. Maya felt tears stinging her eyes. She'd been so worried all week about that money. About whether she'd done the right thing. Is he okay, Robert? He is now? Thanks to you, we were able to find him. He's somewhere safe, getting the help he needs. But Maya, that's not the only reason I wanted to talk to you. Can we meet in person? There's something important I need to discuss with you. Something that could really matter to your future. Every instinct Maya had screamed that this was crazy. You didn't meet strange women who called you out of nowhere, no matter how nice they sounded. But something in Patricia's voice felt genuine. And she'd already proven she wasn't lying about Robert being her brother. How else would she have known his name? I don't know, Maya said slowly. This is all really weird. I understand completely. How about this? We meet somewhere public. Bring a friend if you want. I just need an hour of your time. Please, you did something incredibly kind for my brother, and I want to properly thank you. Is there any harm in letting me do that? Maya thought about her mother at home, thought about the bills on the counter, thought about how she was so tired all the time she could barely think straight. What did she have to lose? An hour. Okay, she heard herself say. Where? They arranged to meet the next day at a coffee shop downtown. Patricia insisted on picking up the tab for whatever Maya wanted. When Maya hung up, she sat in her car for a long time, staring at nothing. That night she told her mother about the phone call. Her mother listened carefully, her weathered hands folded in her lap. Baby, I taught you to be careful, her mother said. But I also taught you to be kind. And sometimes when you put kindness out into the world, it comes back to you. Maybe this is one of those times. Or maybe it's a scam, Maya said. Her mother smiled. Then you meet her in public, you stay alert, and you trust your gut? But don't let fear stop you from finding out what this is about. That's not how I raised you. The next day, Maya's hands were sweating as she walked into the coffee shop. Patricia was already there, sitting at a corner table. When she saw Maya, her whole face lit up. She stood and held out her hand. Maya, thank you so much for coming. Please sit. Order anything you want. Maya ordered the cheapest thing on the menu, a regular coffee. Old habits. Patricia ordered a latte and a croissant, and insisted Maya get one too. When they were settled, Patricia pulled out her phone. She showed Maya a picture of a man in a hospital bed. He was clean-shaven now, and his hair was cut, but Maya recognized those gentle eyes. Robert. He's doing so much better, Patricia said softly. He's been struggling with mental illness for years. We lost track of him last year when he stopped taking his medication. We hired people to look for him, put up posters, checked every shelter in the state. We were terrified he was dead. Maya felt her throat tighten. I'm glad he's safe. He told us about you. About how you defended him? How you spent your own money to feed him? Patricia's eyes were shining. Maya, I did some checking. I know you work 2 jobs. I know you're taking care of your mother. I know that money you spent on Robert probably hurt your budget. Maya shifted uncomfortably. It was just a meal. No, Patricia said firmly. It was so much more than that. And that's what I wanted to talk to you about. She leaned forward, her voice dropping. My family has resources. Significant resources. And we believe in rewarding genuine kindness. Not kindness that's done for attention or praise, but the kind you showed. The kind that costs you something. Maya's heart was hammering. I don't understand. Patricia smiled. You will. But first, I need to know more about you. About your dreams. About what you'd do if money wasn't an obstacle. Would you be willing to tell me? Maya sat there in that coffee shop, wondering what on earth she'd stumbled into. But something in Patricia's eyes made her want to trust. Made her want to believe that maybe, just maybe, being kind to a stranger was about to change everything. Maya stared at Patricia across the coffee shop table, trying to process what she was being asked. What were her dreams? When was the last time anyone had asked her that? When was the last time she'd even let herself dream? I wanted to be a nurse, Maya heard herself say. The words came out quietly, like admitting a secret. I got accepted into a nursing program 4 years ago. Had a partial scholarship and everything. But then my dad passed away and my mom got sick, and the bills just kept coming. I had to choose between school and keeping a roof over our heads. Patricia listened without interrupting. Her eyes focused completely on Maya. It felt strange having someone's full attention like this. Most people in Maya's life were too busy with their own problems to really listen. I still think about it sometimes, Maya continued. When I'm at the diner and I see someone struggling, or when my mom has a doctor's appointment and the nurses are so kind to her, I think about how I could have been doing that. Helping people. Making a difference. She laughed, but it came out bitter. Instead, I'm refilling coffee cups and scraping plates. There's no shame in honest work, Patricia said gently. But I hear what you're not saying. You feel stuck. Maya nodded, surprised by the tears that were suddenly threatening to spill. She blinked them back hard. I'm sorry. You didn't ask to hear my life story. Actually, I did. Patricia set down her coffee cup. Maya, what I'm about to tell you is going to sound unbelievable. But I need you to hear me out completely before you react. Can you do that? Maya's stomach tightened with anxiety, but she nodded. Patricia took a deep breath. My brother Robert wasn't always homeless. He was a successful architect. Designed buildings all over the state. Had a beautiful home, a great life. But mental illness doesn't care about success. He had a breakdown about 8 years ago. Paranoid schizophrenia. Some days he's fine. Other days he can't tell what's real and what isn't. Maya felt her heart break a little, thinking about the gentle man she'd fed. I'm so sorry. Our family tried everything to help him. Medication, therapy, supervised living situations. But Robert is stubborn. A few times a year, he stops taking his medication and disappears. Sometimes for weeks, sometimes months. It terrifies us every single time. But you found him because of me? Maya asked. Yes, but there's more to the story. Patricia folded her hands on the table. My family is wealthy. My grandfather started a manufacturing company in the 1950s that grew into something massive. When he died, he left behind a foundation with very specific instructions. Maya listened, confused about where this was going. My grandfather believed that you could tell everything about a person's character by how they treat people who can do nothing for them. People society ignores. He wanted to reward true compassion. So he set up a foundation designed to find genuinely kind people and help them achieve their dreams. That's nice, Maya said slowly, still not understanding what this had to do with her. Patricia leaned forward. Here's the part that's going to sound crazy. For the past 15 years, we've had people volunteer to help us identify these genuinely kind individuals. Robert is one of those volunteers. Maya felt like the floor had dropped out from under her. What? A few times a year, when he's stable and on his medication, Robert volunteers to live on the streets for a week or two. We have people who watch from a distance to make sure he's safe. But he goes into restaurants, stores, public spaces. Most people ignore him or treat him like garbage, but every once in a while someone surprises us. Maya's mind was reeling. You're saying that night was a test? No, Patricia said firmly. It wasn't a test. Robert really is my brother. He really does struggle with mental illness. And he really was hungry that night. Everything I told you is true. But yes, we were hoping to see how people would treat him. And you, Maya, you were extraordinary. Maya stood up so fast her chair scraped against the floor. Several people looked over. This is insane. You're telling me this was all some kind of game? Some rich person's experiment? Please sit down, Patricia said calmly. Let me finish. Maya wanted to leave. Wanted to walk out and forget this whole crazy conversation. But something made her sit back down. Maybe it was the sincerity in Patricia's eyes. Maybe it was because she'd already come this far. We're not the only ones who observed what you did, Patricia continued. After you helped Robert, we had someone look into your life. I know that sounds invasive, and I apologize. But we needed to know if your kindness that night was an isolated incident or who you really are. Maya felt violated. Angry. You investigated me? We did, and here's what we found. You work 70 hours a week at 2 jobs to support your mother. You donate blood every 8 weeks because they give you a gift card you use for groceries. You volunteer at a community center on your 1 day off each month, teaching kids to read. Last Christmas, you bought presents for 3 children through a Giving Tree program, even though you could barely afford it. Should I go on? Maya's face was burning. Those were private things. Personal things. You had no right. You're absolutely correct. And if you want to walk out of here right now, I'll understand completely. But before you do, I want to tell you what the foundation is prepared to offer you. Maya crossed her arms, defiant. But she didn't leave. Patricia pulled out a folder from her bag and slid it across the table. Full scholarship to any accredited nursing program in the state. All tuition, books, and fees covered. A monthly stipend for living expenses so you can quit your jobs and focus on school. A trust fund to cover your mother's medical expenses for the next 10 years. And when you graduate, a guaranteed position at a hospital of your choosing with the foundation covering any additional certification costs. Maya stared at the folder like it might explode. She didn't touch it. Why would you do this? Because my grandfather believed that compassion is the most valuable trait a person can have. And because people like you shouldn't have to sacrifice their dreams just to survive. You showed kindness to my brother when it cost you something. When it would have been easier to look away like everyone else did. That matters to us. This can't be real, Maya whispered. Her hands were shaking. It's completely real. There are no catches. No strings attached. We're not asking you to work for us or promote us or do anything except accept the help and continue being the person you already are. Maya finally opened the folder. Inside were official-looking documents. Scholarship agreements. Trust fund paperwork. Letters from nursing schools. It all looked legitimate. Too legitimate. This couldn't be happening. I need time to think, Maya said, her voice barely audible. Of course. Take all the time you need. Patricia wrote something on a piece of paper. This is my personal cell phone. Call me day or night when you've made a decision. But Maya, I want you to understand something. You've already earned this. What you did for Robert wasn't about money or recognition. You helped him because it was the right thing to do. That's exactly the kind of person we're looking for. Maya left the coffee shop in a daze. She sat in her car for 20 minutes, just staring at the folder. This had to be a scam. Things like this didn't happen to people like her. Rich people didn't just hand out scholarships and trust funds because you bought someone dinner. But what if it was real? She drove to the hospital where her mother had her weekly physical therapy appointment. She found her in the waiting room, filling out insurance forms with a frown on her face. Her mother looked up and saw Maya's expression. "Baby, what's wrong? You look like you've seen a ghost." Maya sat down next to her and opened the folder. She told her everything. About Patricia. About Robert volunteering to live on the streets. About the investigation. About the scholarship and the trust fund and the job guarantee. All of it. Her mother listened without saying a word until Maya finished. Then she was quiet for a long moment, looking at the documents. "This is real," her mother finally said. "How can you tell?" "Because I've lived 63 years on this earth, and I've learned that sometimes, just sometimes, goodness gets rewarded. Not always. Not even usually. But sometimes." She took Maya's hand. "You've been killing yourself for years taking care of me. Working yourself to the bone. Never complaining. And when you had barely enough for yourself, you still gave to someone who had less. Maybe this is the universe saying thank you. Or maybe it's too good to be true," Maya said. Her mother squeezed her hand. "Then you call that woman back. You ask every question you can think of. You read every piece of paper 10 times, and you make sure it's legitimate. But don't walk away from this out of fear, baby. Don't do that." That night, Maya spread all the documents across her kitchen table. She read every word. She looked up the foundation online and found it was real. Established in 1968, millions in assets, legitimate board members. She found articles about other people they'd helped over the years, teachers, social workers, a firefighter. All people who'd shown extraordinary kindness without expecting anything in return. It was real. It was all real. Maya picked up her phone with trembling hands and dialed Patricia's number. She answered on the first ring. "I want to accept," Maya said. "But I need to know something first." "Why, Robert? Why put him through that if he's struggling with mental illness?" Patricia's voice was soft when she answered. "Because Robert insisted. On his good days, he says it gives him purpose. That helping us find good people makes his bad days mean something. We would never force him. But this is his choice. His way of making a difference." Maya closed her eyes. She thought about Robert's gentle smile, about the pride in his voice when he'd refused charity, about how he'd thanked her with tears in his eyes. "Okay," she said. "I'm in. Tell me what happens next." The next 2 weeks felt like living in a dream Maya was afraid to wake up from. Patricia had arranged for her to meet with the Foundation's board of directors, a group of 7 people who ranged from a retired teacher to a hospital administrator to a tech company CEO. They'd all smiled warmly at her, asked her questions about her life, her goals, her mother's health. It felt surreal sitting in that fancy conference room with its leather chairs and panoramic windows overlooking the city. "We've reviewed your case thoroughly," the board chairman had said. He was an older man named Harold with kind eyes and silver hair. "And we're unanimous in our decision. We want to move forward with the full scholarship package." Maya had cried right there in front of all of them. She couldn't help it. Years of exhaustion and worry and sacrifice just came pouring out. Patricia had squeezed her hand while the others politely pretended not to notice her tears, but accepting help turned out to be harder than Maya expected. The foundation wanted to start immediately. They'd already contacted 3 nursing programs on her behalf, all of which had openings for the spring semester starting in just 6 weeks. They wanted to set up the trust fund for her mother's medical care. They'd even found a small house in a safe neighborhood that the foundation owned and wanted to let Maya and her mother live in. Rent-free. It was everything Maya had dreamed of. So why did she feel so terrified? "I don't know if I can do this," Maya told her mother one night. They were sitting at their tiny kitchen table, the one that wobbled if you leaned on it wrong. "What if I fail? What if I get into the nursing program and I'm not smart enough? It's been 4 years since I was in school. What if I've forgotten everything?" Her mother reached across and took both of Maya's hands in hers. Her grip was weaker than it used to be, but still steady. "Baby, you've been taking care of me, working 2 jobs, and still finding time to help other people. You think someone who can do all that isn't smart enough for nursing school? That's different. That's just survival." "No," her mother said firmly. "That's strength. That's determination. Those are the same things that will get you through school. The only difference is now you won't be doing it alone." Maya wanted to believe her, but there was something else bothering her, something she hadn't wanted to admit even to herself. "What if people think I didn't earn this? What if they think I'm just some charity case who got lucky?" Her mother was quiet for a moment. Then she said something Maya would never forget. "People are going to think what they want to think no matter what you do. You could work yourself to death and someone would call you a fool. You could accept help and someone would call you lazy. So you might as well do what's best for you and the people you love. Let the rest of them think whatever they want." 3 days later, Maya walked into Romano's diner for what would be her last shift. She'd given Mr. Romano 2 weeks' notice, though she felt guilty about leaving during the busy season. He'd surprised her by being genuinely happy for her. "You're too good for this place anyway," he'd said, his gruff voice a little softer than usual. "Go be a nurse. Help people who really need it. We'll miss you, but don't you dare feel bad about leaving." Her last night was bittersweet. The regulars had heard she was leaving, and many of them came in to say goodbye. The elderly couple who came every Monday gave her a card with a $50 bill inside. The construction workers took up a collection and handed her an envelope with almost $200. Even Jenny, the hostess who usually barely spoke to her, hugged her and said she hoped Maya's dreams came true, but the moment that broke Maya came near the end of her shift. A teenage girl came in alone and sat in Maya's section. She ordered just a water and the cheapest thing on the menu, a side of fries. Maya recognized the look in her eyes, the way she counted out exact change from her pocket, the way she ate slowly, making it last. Maya brought her the fries and then, without saying a word, brought out a burger and a milkshake too. When the girl started to protest, Maya just smiled. "Someone did something kind for me once. I'm just passing it on." The girl's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you. I've been walking all day looking for work and I was so hungry." Maya wanted to give her money, but she knew from experience that people had pride. Instead, she wrote down the address of the community center where she volunteered. They help people find jobs. "Go there tomorrow morning, ask for Mrs. Chun and tell her Maya sent you. She help you." When Maya's shift ended, she stood in the parking lot and looked back at the diner. She'd spent 3 years of her life in that building. 3 years of aching feet and grease-stained uniforms and difficult customers, but she'd also learned something important there. She'd learned that kindness cost nothing but meant everything. That treating people with dignity wasn't about what you could afford. It was about who you chose to be. The next month was a whirlwind. Maya and her mother moved into the house the foundation provided. It wasn't huge, but compared to their old apartment, it felt like a palace. 3 bedrooms, a real kitchen, a backyard with a tree. Her mother cried when she saw it. Maya did too. The trust fund was set up, and suddenly her mother's medications weren't a source of constant stress. The copays were covered. The specialist appointments her mother had been putting off because they were too expensive were suddenly possible. Maya watched her mother's health improve week by week and realized how much stress had been making everything worse. Maya enrolled in the nursing program at the state university. Her first day of class, she sat in the lecture hall surrounded by students who were mostly younger than her. Some of them were fresh out of high school, talking about parties and spring break. Maya felt ancient at 26. She felt out of place. She felt scared, but then the professors started talking about why they'd chosen nursing, about wanting to help people, to make a difference, to be there for others in their worst moments. And Maya realized she belonged here more than she'd belonged anywhere in years. The coursework was brutal. Anatomy, physiology, pharmacology, medical terminology. Maya studied until her eyes burned. She made flashcards and stuck them all over the house. She joined study groups with classmates who were generous with their notes and their time. And slowly, things started to click. The information made sense. She was good at this, but the best part was the clinical rotations. Actually working with patients in real hospitals. Maya found that all those years of reading people at the diner had taught her things her classmates were still learning. She could tell when someone was in pain but trying to hide it. She could spot when a patient was scared and needed reassurance. She knew how to talk to people who were having the worst day of their lives. One afternoon during her rotation in the emergency room, an elderly man came in after a fall. He was homeless. That was obvious from his clothes and the smell. The other students wrinkled their noses and found reasons to work with other patients. But Maya pulled up a chair next to his bed. "Hi there. I'm Maya. I'm a nursing student, and I'm going to help take care of you today. What's your name?" The man looked at her with such surprise, like he couldn't believe someone was actually talking to him like a person. "Theodore," he said quietly, "but people call me Teddy." Maya spent extra time with Teddy, cleaning his wounds carefully, making sure he was warm, bringing him an extra blanket and a sandwich from the cafeteria. When her instructor came by, she expected to be told she was spending too much time on one patient. Instead, the instructor pulled her aside. "That's what nursing is really about," the instructor said. "Not just the medical knowledge, though that's crucial, but treating every patient with dignity. Never forget that, Maya. You're going to be an excellent nurse." 6 months into the program, Patricia called and asked if Maya wanted to have lunch. They met at a nice restaurant downtown, and Patricia had someone with her. It was Robert. He looked different than that rainy night at the diner. He was clean, well-dressed, clear-eyed. But that gentle smile was the same. "I wanted to thank you properly," Robert said, shaking Maya's hand. "I remember that night. How you stood up for me, how you treated me like I mattered. I've been homeless more times than I can count, and most people look right through me. But you saw me as a person." "You are a person," Maya said. "Everyone deserves basic kindness." "Not everyone believes that," Robert said, "but you do. That's why we wanted to help you. Because people like you make the world better just by being in it." They talked for 2 hours. Robert told her about his journey with mental illness, the good days and bad days, how volunteering for the foundation gave him purpose. Patricia shared stories of other people they'd helped over the years. A single father who became a teacher. A veteran who started a nonprofit for homeless pets. An immigrant who opened a community health clinic. "You're part of something bigger now," Patricia said. "A chain of kindness that keeps growing. And someday, when you're a successful nurse, you'll have the chance to help someone else the way we helped you. That's how it works." Maya thought about the teenage girl at the diner, the one she'd bought a meal for on her last night. She thought about Teddy in the emergency room. She thought about all the patients she'd care for in the years to come. "I won't let you down," Maya promised. Patricia smiled. "Honey, you already haven't. You've been living up to this since before you ever met us. All we did was give you the opportunity to do it on a bigger scale." That night, Maya sat with her mother in their little backyard, watching the sunset. Her mother looked healthier than she had in years, color in her cheeks, energy in her voice. "You know what's funny?" Maya said. "I spent years thinking that kindness was something I couldn't afford, like it was a luxury for people who had extra to give. But that night with Robert, I had nothing extra. I gave him money I needed, and somehow that turned into all of this." Her mother squeezed her hand. "That's because real kindness isn't about what you can afford to give. It's about choosing to give anyway. Anyone can be generous when they have plenty. The real test is what you do when you have nothing." Maya leaned her head on her mother's shoulder, feeling grateful and blessed and still a little bit like she was dreaming. But if this was a dream, she never wanted to wake up. 2 years felt like both forever and no time at all. Maya stood in her cap and gown, waiting for her name to be called. Her hands were sweating and her heart was racing. Around her, other graduates chatted excitedly, taking selfies, adjusting each other's caps. Maya just tried to breathe. Maya Johnson, graduating with honors. The applause sounded far away as Maya walked across that stage. She shook hands with the dean, accepted her diploma, and looked out into the crowd. Her mother was in the third row, tears streaming down her face, clapping so hard it probably hurt her hands. Next to her sat Patricia and Robert, both beaming with pride. They'd become like family over the past 2 years, checking in regularly, celebrating her successes, encouraging her through the hard times. And there had been hard times. Nursing school had pushed Maya to her absolute limits. There were nights she'd studied until 3 in the morning, then had to be at the hospital for clinical rotation at 6. There were exams that made her doubt everything she'd learned. There were moments with patients that broke her heart in ways she hadn't expected, like the 7-year-old girl with leukemia who'd asked Maya if dying hurt, or the elderly man who had no family and held Maya's hand during his last hours because he didn't want to be alone, or the young mother who'd lost her baby and sobbed in Maya's arms because Maya was the only one who'd taken the time to just sit with her grief. But there had been beautiful moments too. The premature baby she'd helped care for who finally got strong enough to go home. The stroke patient who'd learned to walk again and hugged Maya so tight she could barely breathe. The teenager who'd survived a suicide attempt and later told Maya that her kindness had reminded him life was worth living. After the ceremony, there was a small celebration at a restaurant. Nothing fancy, just the people Maya loved most. Her mother, Patricia, Robert, a few classmates who'd become close friends, and Mrs. Chung from the community center who'd been like a second mother to her. "I'm so proud of you, baby," her mother said, squeezing Maya's hand across the table. Her mother's health had improved so much over the past 2 years. The stress of financial worry had lifted, and proper medical care had made all the difference. She looked 10 years younger. "None of this would have happened without you," Maya said to Patricia. "I still can't believe you changed my whole life because of one meal." Patricia smiled, but there was something knowing in her expression. "It wasn't just one meal, Maya. We watched you for weeks before we approached you. We saw how you treated every customer with respect. How you slipped extra food to people who looked hungry. How you stayed late to help the cleaning crew when they were short-staffed, even though you were exhausted. That night with Robert just confirmed what we already suspected. That you're exactly the kind of person my grandfather wanted to help." Robert raised his glass to Maya, who saw a homeless man and saw a human being. "The world needs more people like you." Everyone clinked glasses, and Maya felt her eyes getting misty again. She'd cried more in the past 2 years than she had in her entire life. Happy tears, grateful tears, overwhelmed tears. All of them worth it. The next week, Maya started her job at Memorial Hospital in the emergency department. It was exactly where she wanted to be. The ED was chaotic and unpredictable and exhausting, but it was also where people needed help the most, where life and death decisions happened in seconds, where compassion could make the difference between someone feeling alone in their worst moment or feeling cared for. Her first day was terrifying. Even with all her training, the reality of being responsible for actual patients was overwhelming. But her charge nurse, a veteran with 30 years' experience named Linda, took her under her wing. "You're going to make mistakes," Linda told her bluntly. "Everyone does. The key is learning from them and never losing sight of why you're here. These people are scared. They're in pain. They're having the worst day of their lives. Your job is to make it a little bit better. Can you do that?" Maya nodded. "Yes, I can do that." And she did. Over the weeks and months that followed, Maya found her rhythm. She learned to manage multiple patients, to prioritize, to stay calm in emergencies. But what set her apart, what made patients ask for her by name, was something that couldn't be taught in any classroom. It was the way she really listened when patients talked. The way she held an elderly woman's hand while starting in 4, the way she talked to confused dementia patients like they were her own grandparents, the way she never rushed past the homeless patients who came in seeking help one Saturday evening. 6 months into her new job, Maya was triaging patients in the waiting room when a young man came in supporting another man who could barely walk. The second man was clearly homeless. His clothes were filthy, his face bruised, and he smelled like he hadn't bathed in weeks. The waiting room was packed, and Maya heard several people groan when they saw him. "He got jumped," the young man said. "I found him behind the grocery store. He needs help." Maya immediately got a wheelchair. "What's your name?" she asked the injured man gently. "Vincent," he mumbled through swollen lips. "But I don't got insurance. I can't pay." "Don't worry about that right now," Maya said, already assessing his injuries. Possible broken ribs, definitely a concussion, lacerations that needed cleaning. "Let's get you taken care of first." She got Vincent into a room and started treatment. As she cleaned his wounds, she talked to him. Found out he'd been a construction worker before a back injury left him unable to work. Lost his apartment, then his car, then everything. Been on the streets for 8 months. Had a daughter somewhere in another state he hadn't seen in 3 years. "I'm sorry I smell bad," Vincent said, looking ashamed. "You have nothing to apologize for," Maya said firmly. "You were attacked. You needed help. That's why I'm here." While Vincent was getting x-rays, the young man who'd brought him in approached Maya at the nurse's station. "Thank you for treating him like a person. I passed him every day on my way to work and never stopped. Today I couldn't walk past anymore. But I didn't know if anyone here would actually help him." "Everyone deserves medical care," Maya said. "Everyone?" The young man nodded slowly. I've been feeling pretty sorry for myself lately. Lost my job, behind on bills, stressed about everything. But watching you help him, seeing how much worse things could be, I don't know. It puts things in perspective." After he left, Maya thought about those words. It puts things in perspective. She thought about herself 2 years ago, exhausted and broke and feeling hopeless. She thought about Robert, who'd struggled with mental illness but still found ways to help others. She thought about how one act of kindness had created ripples that were still spreading. Vincent ended up staying in the hospital for 3 days. Maya wasn't his primary nurse after that first night, but she checked on him every shift. She connected him with social services, helped him apply for disability benefits he didn't know he qualified for, and got him into a transitional housing program. On the day he was discharged, he hugged her carefully, mindful of his still healing ribs. "You saved my life," he said. "Not just medically. You gave me hope again." "You did the hard part," Maya told him. "You survived. You kept going. That takes real strength." 3 months later, Maya got a call from Patricia asking if she'd like to join the foundation's board as an advisor. They wanted her perspective on how to identify and help people in need, particularly in healthcare settings. "We've helped a lot of people over the years," Patricia said. "But we want to do better. We want to reach more people. And we think your experience, both before and after we helped you, gives you unique insight." Maya accepted. Once a month, she attended board meetings where they reviewed candidates for assistance. She helped interview potential recipients, asking the kinds of questions that revealed true character. And sometimes she went out herself to observe people, to see how they treated others when they thought no one important was watching. One evening, she was having coffee in a diner when she noticed a teenage boy bussing tables. He was working fast, efficient, but what caught her attention was how he stopped to help an elderly man who dropped his fork, how he brought extra napkins to a mother struggling with 2 toddlers without being asked, how he patiently explained the menu to a confused customer instead of rushing them when the boy took his break. Maya watched him sit in the back corner with a textbook, studying intensely. She recognized that exhausted determination. She'd lived it. Before she left, Maya walked up to him. "Excuse me. I noticed how kind you were to all the customers tonight. That elderly gentleman especially. That was really nice. The boy looked embarrassed. Just doing my job, ma'am. No, Maya said. You were doing more than your job. You were treating people with dignity. That's special. She pulled out a business card. I work with an organization that helps students pursue their education. Would you be interested in learning more? The boy's eyes widened. Is this real? Maya smiled, remembering asking Patricia that same question 2 years ago. It's real. Give me a call when you're ready. As she walked to her car, Maya felt a sense of peace she'd never experienced before. She was exactly where she was supposed to be, doing exactly what she was meant to do, helping people. Not just with medicine, but with compassion, with dignity, with the simple recognition that everyone matters. Her phone buzzed with a text from her mother. Dinner's ready when you get home. Made your favorite. Maya smiled and texted back a heart emoji. Then she drove home, past the streets where she used to struggle, past the diner where she'd worked herself to exhaustion, past Romano's where everything had changed. She thought about Robert, about that rainy night, about the choice she'd made to help a stranger, how that choice had transformed her entire world. And she made herself a promise. She would never forget where she came from, never forget what it felt like to struggle, and she would spend the rest of her life making sure that kindness, real kindness, never went unnoticed, because sometimes all it takes is one person seeing another person's humanity, one person choosing compassion over convenience. One small act of kindness that ripples out in ways you can't imagine. Maya had been that person once, and now she got to help others become that person too. It was the best job in the world.